So, where do we even start with the man, the legend, Pete Tong's History of Rave? Where do you start? Like, it starts before rave for you, right?
Seeing a DJ for the first time, because
I
I was at school. I was drumming in my average band.
I was drumming as well.
Yeah.
Before
so,
DJing.
I was doing like Deep Purple covers and Argent, Hold Your Head Up, and then there was a DJ setting up at the front of the stage. And
What year was this? Rough, if you don't mind me asking. I don't want to give away your.
This would be probably 1975.
Wow. Okay.
And the DJ set up in front of us, and then we obviously finished to our polite, not very loud applause, and then he started, and it just transformed the room because everyone's kind of engaged. And it was the first time I'd really seen a DJ and also the effect a DJ can have. And literally within 2 records, the school dance floor was full. And I just said to my mate, actually, who was in the band, I think we'd better do that. And that back in those days, it was literally 2 turntables, like belt drive, and
with the mixer kind of built in, like
not even that. It was like a home amplifier, so it was very kind of like Heath Robinson, whatever. And then I remember going back to my dad and said, that drum kit you just bought me that I pestered you about? It's like I think I want a DJ console. So we went up to there was a disco shop in Kentish Town, a specialist called Roger Squires. I think he was like the king of the mobile DJ at that time, and we got one of those. I think all-in-one units with.
Did it have pitch control?
Not then. No, it was belt drive turntables. So and then started doing pretty much quite entrepreneurial actually, like doing my own parties, village halls. Then I got a residency in a restaurant in Kent in New Ash Green, and then that was called the Ashes. And then some people started coming to that gig who happened to be kind of connected to the soul scene. They were all dancers, and they were a little bit older than me and much hipper than I was, but they kind of took me under their wing, and I kind of joined their gang, and they used to bring me kind of American imports and stuff like that.
I was going to ask, what kind of music, when you were playing in this?
It was really soul. Well, I mean, I kind of like right at the very beginning, it's literally like Tiger Feet by Mud, or and then but I was gravitating quite quickly to like anything that was kind of danceable, like James Brown,
soul, that kind of thing,
Funkadelic, George McRae, Rock You Baby, like early disco, and kind of naturally kind of fell into like dance music. You didn't really call it that.
No.
Anything people could dance to, and more black music really. I was always driven to kind of soul and funk. And then realising that there was this whole kind of underground movement of soul and jazz funk scene. And that's when I kind of discovered the real players back then who became a huge influence on me. My first real mentor was kind of the DJ Chris Hill, and then Robbie Vincent on the radio. And radio was such a, like, how to get on. Like, I just became obsessed with radio because that was my kind of connection to this secret world. So he had this show on a Saturday lunchtime.
What radio station?
On Radio London. And
right,
it was kind of the gospel of like anyone that was into the kind of soul and jazz funk scene, that you'd listen to Robbie Vincent. And then I started running parties in Kent at a place called the King's Lodge, and I kind of figured out the only way I was going to join their gang was like by booking them to come and play with me, and it kind of went from there. And I had my own sound system, and I started doing sound systems for some of their shows. I was working with a guy called Froggy, who was kind of the real don of sound systems back in those days. So yeah.
And it was like, but they reggae sound, like kind of similar to reggae sound.
Kind of like a reggae sound system, but proper big sound system. He was like Froggy was doing all the sound systems for the All Dayers and the first ever kind of Soul Weekenders. And I brought a lot of his old equipment as he upgraded.
Oh, I see.
So I
became,
yeah. And his stuff was all made by this company Orange, and the console was by this guy called Matt Amp, which was quite renowned back then. And so I every gig he couldn't do, or every gig where there was 2 rooms, I would do the other room, and kind of wheedled my way in that way. So having a sound system actually became. And I, when I left school, I was meant to get a proper job, and I just went full time with the transit band.
Called a proper job. I still to this day call it a proper job. I used to do a proper job.
Yeah. No, I always had to have. I think the reason I ended up my whole career doing loads of different things is because actually nobody considered DJing to be a proper
Oh,
job.
no, I still don't in my head. It's not a proper job.
So that's how I ended up at a magazine and then eventually London Records. So.
And then when did sort of the Chicago sound, the house sound, when did that first start infiltrating your mind? When did you?
Well, in the mid '80s, I'd kind of left the soul scene and joined up with Nicky Holloway. So Nicky became a huge influence in my life, kind of mid '80s, and I started working with him at these two pubs in Bermondsey, the Swan and Sugarloaf and the Royal Oak, and then he started doing these do's. Like these big one-off events in London. So we did do at the Zoo a bunch of times, do at the Dome, do at the Natural History Museum.
Wow.
And back then it was like a mix of, I would call it like, we used to call it boogie music. It was like the music that Kiss FM was starting to play. It was kind of rare groove and kind of rare but current kind of music. It was hip hop and so a lot of like early Sleeping Bag and Def Jam mixed in with like these records starting to arrive from Chicago and New York. I was already working at London Records by then, so I was going to New York a lot. And I got to another one of my kind of mentors in the early days was Timmy Regisford.
Yeah, amazing.
And Craig
still
Corman
making
to a certain
great tunes
extent.
now.
Yeah, exactly. And they kind of turned me on to like the first house music. So I kind of physically got my hands on the first ever house records by being in New York, and then basically taking me to Vinyl Mania and saying you got to listen to this. So we started playing. Yeah, it was. We were playing house records, but we were still playing a bit of hip hop.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So I guess there weren't that many house records around at that time, but in the very beginning.
Yeah. And then I actually went to Ibiza with like the famous trip that Nicky and Paul did with Johnny Walker and Danny Rampling. I went with Nicky the year before, and obviously just. Yeah, didn't discover ecstasy, like they did the year after, and then, but that, yeah. So it was a mishmash of influences, and then obviously when it really takes hold is when so when they do that trip and they come back, and obviously Paul starts Spectrum, Danny starts Zoom, and then Nicky started
Is that how you
Trip.
say Zoom?
Zoom.
I always said shoom.
Shoom.
Yeah, but
Zoom. I
I
always
like
say
that.
zoom.
I reckon you probably know better than I do.
Yeah. So and then Nicky took over the Astoria. We'd started doing his brand was Special Branch, and we did the last ever. Special Branch was still kind of tied to the soul scene. It was this. I was talking to him about the other day. This kind of transformation through the '80s where we went from like the purest soul scene and ended up with the beginnings of the house and rave scene. So rave to me really comes into its own like 87, 88, yeah.
And were you doing A&Ring then as well at London?
Yeah. I literally perfect timing. I joined London in '83, and I started signing kind of dance records to London. And then
what was the first one to buy? What was the first one you instrumental that was massive?
Well, the first record.
The first dance record that you A&R'd that was like, can you remember?
Yeah. I mean, the first. I mean, when I joined, the first band I ever signed was Total Contrast. It wasn't huge, but they were produced by this guy called Steve Harvey. And then I worked with Steve, and then I signed some Sleeping Bag records. And Joyce Sims really was probably my.
Oh, okay.
So signing, yeah.
What a tune!
And then
Too Blind to See It. That's what it's called, right?
Yeah. Well, no, that's Kim Sims.
Oh yeah.
No, Joyce Sims is Coming to My Life.
Coming
and Too Blind to See It.
Oh yeah, amazing.
But All in All was the big record before that. So the first Joyce Sims hit, which was like, turned into a big pop hit, was All in All, and then she followed it up with Coming to My Life, which was obviously the slower record really, that was like smooth. Massive. And then obviously signed Run DMC to London, which was on the Walk This Way album.
Yeah.
And then the first ever House Sound of Chicago, Volume 1, actually did come out. Everyone thinks it's on FFRR, but it was actually on London. So, and that had Jack Your Body.
I've got it on vinyl, I'm pretty sure.
Move Your Body, Love Can't Turn Around. And then that's when it really exploded, yeah. But also to think quite quickly, we had... it's funny thinking back how quickly things move, because Jack Your Body ends up being a #1 pop single in the UK as well. And I remember we used to all go into the company. The chart used to come out on a Monday morning, and we all went into the office on this particular Monday morning, and the record had gone to number one. And I remember the breakfast show DJ at the time was a guy called Mike Smith, and he'd never heard the record before, and he just didn't know where it had come from, and he was completely bewildered. It was like, and the number one is this some kind of mistake? Jack Your Body by Steve Silkirby. So anyway,
it's amazing the power of dance music, isn't it? And how it quickly took hold.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was really the youth culture just shifted dramatically. Yeah.
And so, like, when did you? Because obviously, from then it blew up massive, super quick, and then it went illegal raves, right? With the 88, 89 was when. And were you playing those? Were you involved in the?
I did a few. I mean, you had the warehouse parties. You had the M25 raves. So I did my fair share, but I really got that was like the first stage. The second stage is what I call the establishment of the one-offs, where you took over kind of semi-legal premises. That is what I'm saying. Like Spectrum, which Paul did, was at Heaven. You know, the club under Charing Cross Station.
Fab and Groove were talking about.
Yeah, and he started by doing a small club called the Shaft. I mean, it was called the Shaft, and he called it Future. And then he did so well with this on a Thursday night that they gambled and took over Monday nights.
And Spectrum was the number one party, right, in London. That's what.
Yeah,
that's what Fab and Groove was saying.
I mean, it was Monday. It was like everyone thought he was completely bonkers to think of, like, he had 150 people coming on a Thursday night in a 150 capacity venue, and he was going to go and do a place that held 1,500 people on a Monday in the same, the main room basically of the club. And the first few weeks, it didn't really take off. And it was only after like week 8, 9, when they ended up having queues around the block. And they ended up having 500 people outside every week. So yeah, it was a big success story. But it was a Monday. Whereas what we were doing, and what Jum was a weekend, and what I did with Nicky at this story was Saturday night. So yeah.
And then when did you? So you obviously A&R DJing. Where were you playing regularly then? Were you playing in the once it had gone, because you obviously moved from illegals to the criminal justice
back then
bill.
I was so remember I'd got onto Capital by then, so I was every Saturday night on Capital Radio from 87 till 1991, just at the time when the rave scenes all starting.
Yeah.
So I'm picking off like gigs, like these one-off gigs. My first real residency was with Nicky. So at the Astoria, the first name for the party was Trip. So, and I remember we put this netting over the Astoria was like a very similar. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was very similar to the Brixton Academy kind of shape.
Yeah.
So we used to
same size or smaller.
So we never thought we'd fill it, and we put this netting from the balcony over the top of the dance floor. And of course, within a few weeks, we're filling it. But it became kind of national news. So like the tabloids attacked it, and after about, I think there was only ever like 8 or 9 weeks of parties, and then the Sun were like, it's called Trip.
Yeah.
There's people misbehaving in there. You got to shut it down. So he had to take a break, and it came back, and we called it Sin the next time. So after a few months off, we started as Sin. And then I literally was there every Saturday for a year or two. And funny enough, Fabio playing breaks, actually.
Yeah.
As in, I'm not sure about Groove Rider, but Fabio definitely was not playing drum and bass at that time.
No.
So he was regular with us, and Nicky obviously. And so that was my first real proper London residency. And then eventually, the third year of that club, we called it Made on Earth. And then eventually, he bought the club over the road. We went from like this big 1,500, 2,000 people capacity, and he bought them. Well, he didn't buy it. He took over the Milk Bar.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Which is where I started. And then I started to DJ with Dave Durrell, and we had a double act that was a year on a Saturday night.
And this
was
like 19.
That's 90, and then Ministry opens in 91, and that's when I moved to Radio 1. And 91 is the next kind of real moment in kind of UK clubbing history, because Cream opens in Liverpool that year, and then by 1993, I always say like every city or town in the country had its own version.
Well, Lakota was
Bristol, yeah. So, and then you have that circuit. So before that time, the DJ stayed in one place and the audience came to the DJ. But by the time when you've got a circuit, that's when we all start travelling up and down the motorway and all over the country. So the clubs stay the same, but the DJ starts. So that was a big change in kind of 91, 92. And it's funny because I was from Kent, lived in London, but when Ministry opened and Justin Berkman was kind of running it and created it, I was not cool enough to play there. Like he had a very New York. The whole thing was like based on the Paradise Garage, and it was and the Warehouse in Chicago, and he wanted like David and CJ played it, but it was very purist, and that's why weirdly I kind of gravitated much more to the north, and Cream almost became my kind of second home. So I started playing there like almost monthly. And eventually Oki obviously starts playing there weekly. So yeah.
And this was a similar time to when Radio 1 came calling.
Yeah,
right?
Radio 1 was 91, and then I'd been up, I'd travelled the country, but suddenly I'm the voice of the nation kind of thing. And the first place I ever really played that really blew me away outside of London was Venus in Nottingham. So that to me was always like the kind of major kind of groundbreaking club, and then quickly moved in with the Liverpool lot after that. So
and what was it like when you with Radio 1, like did you feel your status and your stature and dance music as it and generally rise like as you said like late 80s, and then 91 was the next bit? Did you feel it go boom?
To me it was I didn't really have to think about it. It was just so I was so immersed in it, and it was such a natural phenomenon, and it'd obviously been building from like 87, 88 when I arrived on Capitol. And weirdly, the guy I took over from Radio 1 wasn't really leaning into representing that scene. Jeff Young, who's a dear old friend of mine, was much more tied to the old kind of soul and jazz funk days. So he never really fully embraced what was happening around the country. So by the time I arrived at 91, it was almost someone took the blinkers off. Because it was so genuine and kind of bubbling away, threatening to be so huge. I just arrived at the perfect time.
Bang.
So it was like I just was speaking the audience's language, and obviously back then a lot less distractions than there are now. Radio 1. There was a lot less outlets for people to hear the music. Hence why it was so pivotal at the time. So Radio 1 still does have a big audience, but nothing like 91.
91 was when I first started. I remember the first Pet Shop Boys used to do a show on Radio 1 once a month on a Sunday, and they used to play house music, which I didn't know was
they
house
actually
music.
filled in for me. Sad.
Oh really?
And
it used to. That's when I first time, and I heard Felix, Don't You Want Me?
Yeah.
And that was what I used to be into wrestling, and that was my walk-on music when I used to wrestle a pillow.
Yeah.
And so that was my first. It's like a gay anthem when I'm walking in my pants to wrestle a pillow in my bedroom. So that was and that was 1991, right? So and then from there,
Rollo.
Pardon?
Rollo.
Yeah.
Those records all came out of trade and what was going on at Turnmills in London. Which was another
Rollo,
kind of den of iniquity of creativity.
I mean, the amount of hits that guy's responsible for.
I know.
It's mental, isn't it? And talking of hits and people being responsible, what you've broken, I wouldn't be. I know I'm sat talking to you, but I wouldn't be here where I am without your involvement at all. That's a fact. Right. And I say, especially my era and before, and even now, you're instrumental in career after career. And what would you say, records-wise, especially in the early days, what are the ones you're most... Are there ones that stick out that you're like mega proud of being involved in breaking, whether you signed them, A&R'd them, or pushed them on the radio?
I don't know.
There's so many.
It's almost the entire catalogue of the greatest hits of all time. It's like... I think just obviously being there moments in time. My first ever show, the last record was Finally, like CC Peniston.
And that was at the time it was an import.
And at the times when those songs were so important, so you had the kind of song era of the Lola's themes and stuff like that. A lot of the stuff that now features in the Ibiza classic shows, but obviously being involved in Little Louis, French Kiss, I just think. Just that time, that doing that album, 2 albums with him, such an odd character, but such a genius.
He's a real odd in a good way. He's
I've been involved in 2 very extreme artists in terms of creativity. Him and then Goldie.
I was literally about to say Goldie. He didn't even realise the name that I named. the album after what he said.
Yeah.
And on that release day, he was like sending me voice going, "Hang on, you used like mate, I told you, I repeatedly told you."
Yeah, I told him. No.
Yeah. Anyway, we digress.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of the biggest records that I've been involved in weren't hits at the time. That was the other funny thing. Like even something like Degrees of Motion, Do You Want It Right Now? We were so gutted that we signed that, and then back then I think the first time we released it got to like 45, and the next time we released it got to 39 or something like that, and Shine On. Then neither of them were hits, and it was only years later. I remember when Cream did their first ever compilation.
That black CD with the
and they were all on there, and it was like, and that sold like 300, 400, 500,000 copies, and it actually recouped the deals. Just
really?
Being in the days when compilations actually meant something. It was all our greatest stiffs were on that album. I think Saturday Night, Sunday Morning, Tiempo as well.
Yeah.
So all these great records that are never
that doesn't get enough love, that one.
No, it never did.
But even now, it's not like one that it's actually a wicked tune.
We should do something with that.
Yeah, we should. Yeah. More to come on that. Yeah, mate. And then I guess so. From moving from obviously Radio 1, I'm assuming you were instrumental in taking Radio 1 to Ibiza, right? I'm assuming it was your idea, or you were involved in.
Oh yeah, I'll blow my. I'll take credit for that one. No, the obviously I had this whole previous, like growing up with Radio 1. Radio 1 was obviously just so massive, and they used when I was a lot younger, they used to do the Radio 1 road shows, and then I did have this spell on Radio 1 around 1981 when I was working for Blues and Soul magazine, my first kind of proper job. That I got invited onto Peter Powell's show to bring 3 hot records. So I had a look around at Radio 1 at that point, and it was all the Radio 1 road show and T-shirt competitions and stuff like that. So almost 10 years later, when I get there with my own show, they're still doing the road shows, which I think are very old-fashioned. And they were asking me to come on the road shows, and I said, look, this isn't what we do now. You guys need to come to Ibiza and see what's going on. And eventually we did the first ever Radio 1 weekend. The first ever broadcast was from Café Del Mar in 1995.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
And we kind of so many people came, and we were actually set up inside Café Del Mar, and it kind of, I remember we broke their front windows because people just with so many people in there, and then we moved to Mambo the next year. So it started then.
I remember being in Bar M, 1997.
Yeah.
Right, you were playing in Bar M was weird. Like San Antonio was great then, wasn't it? It was like and it was.
I mean, we always were trying to find the place where you could be out. The whole thing of going to Ibiza was we wanted to broadcast during the day without a roof on. Yeah. So we kind of. Like Mambo was legendary, it was amazing, but it was always a bit of a struggle. There wasn't a stage.
Yeah,
at the beginning. There was the rocks.
Yeah, higgledy-piggledy and whatever.
So we had those few years of doing Bar M, which obviously was open there as well. So yeah,
I remember being stood there. It was the year.
Then we did the windmill one year. That famous
year.
Yeah. We had P Diddy came out the water and joined us. But anyway, yeah.
And I mean, I just remember being there thinking, God, I was 17 years old, just being like, it was like nothing else, was it? Yeah. It was in Ibiza for me. It was like, like experience. I remember going to Space in 1999 with DJ Dye, who wasn't into house music, and watching Fatboy Slim on the terrace, and Dye had tears in his eyes, and he'd always slagged it off, and he was like, I get it now. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah. I think that the seminal experiences of really getting Ibiza, mine certainly came from Space. I'd never seen Space Terrace.
Yeah, Space Terrace.
Originally it was on a Sunday morning or whatever, after Tuesday morning after Manumission. So they were formative times. I mean, the first time I ever played in Ibiza properly was really for Manumission in 91.
That was wicked in there.
Yeah.
That was mental.
Yeah.
That all kinds of stuff went on there.
Yeah, and it was like it always felt so epic as well. It was like it was like so tiring. It was so epic, and it was.
You played on
I
the
never
pool,
really
right?
wanted to like. If you go to Manumission, it's like you'd need a month off to go before you go again.
Did you play above like the swimming?
There was a DJ booth actually. Like years later, using that venue when it was privileged, we were all always down the end, like the big end. But actually, originally, the original Manumission DJ booth was kind of up on the balcony, kind of halfway down the venue. On as you looked at the far end with the glass wall, it was on the right hand side. And it was weird when we first started doing the broadcast from there. Trade secret is so with Radio 1, obviously, I think the Essential Mix back then, we would go live, so you'd be going live at kind of like 11 o'clock or something, or 10 o'clock at night. And of course in Ibiza, that's 1 hour later.
Yeah.
And no one's in the club.
No,
so,
it's still quite early.
So always used to have to go on like pretending it was like insane.
Are you being serious?
Absolutely serious. So most of my Essential Mix sets live from Manumission were like to empty clubs, and I used to kind of pipe in the noise of things. It was just Anyway,
what was your vision when it's talking about Essential Mix? What was the vision for that when because I'm guessing again it was your idea. What was did you think it would go on this long and become this?
I found myself in this unique position with Radio 1, because when I joined Radio 1, the guy that actually hired me was a guy called Johnny Beerling, who was the controller of like the previous era. And within a few months of me joining Radio 1, he left, and then the new boss came in, which was Matthew Bannister, and his sidekick was a guy called Andy Parfitt. Yeah, and they were the ones that famously kind of like, it was the night of the long knives of all of the kind of smashy and nicey era of Radio 1 had to leave, and then it was usher in the new era of Chris Evans and blah blah blah. And I kind of was one of the only people that kind of got over the wall. Like I was there before, but I was part of the new thing. And they were, and Radio 1 really didn't have any dance music or anything, so they would take me. I would regularly go to see them, and they'd be picking my brains about who else they wanted to hire. And that's when we start talking about Judge Jules and Seb Fontaine and Danny Rampling. But I was always like, my biggest influence, like going to New York, was the mix shows, like meeting Timmy Regisford and
what's this one in
Frankie Crocker, and like understanding like the importance of mixed radio in New York. And Timmy had showed me how these shows were done. It was like, it was mad back in the day the way he used to do a show. It was like, it was 2 turntables onto a reel-to-reel tape machine, and then the reel-to-reel tape machine with more turntables onto another reel-to-reel tape machine. It was just like blowing my mind. And like bits of tape stuck all around his room when did edits. And I was like, this is the culture of, obviously DJ culture wasn't chatty culture on the mic. It was like, we need a mix show. So it took a couple of years, but by 93, that's when we managed to launch the Essential Mix. And then it was the extension of the early Essential Mixes. When you look back at them, I mean, the reason, like, if there's a kind of league table of who's done the most Essential Mixes, it's like everyone in the world's done 1 or 2, pretty much. Like, but then right at the top, it's like Carl's done like 50.
I've done
like
10.
Paul, you've done 10, right? Paul's done like 35 or something, and I've done.
You must have done.
And then I've done a load, and yet no one can ever remember when I really did the last one.
We did one together.
And the reason is all of it, in the first couple of years they were all live, and the whole idea was the Essential Mix was to go to clubs and eventually Ibiza and kind of plug in to kind of capture what was going on. And then we always used to have one of our residents. So Carl was one of our residents, Paul Oakenfold was one of our residents, I obviously was, and that's why they done so many. And then eventually there wasn't the budget for it, so that kind of stopped.
Well, I mean, one of the last ones, because when you came to Bristol,
Lakota,
and it was Motion,
Bristol,
you and I did the live Essential Mix from there. And that was, it's still quite a normal thing, but one of the last of just for no reason. Like there wasn't a reason.
No, it was a case of plugging in. Yeah, it wasn't like it wasn't like Radio 1 Big Weekend or something. It's
just like that, and it was one of the last ones to do.
Really,
and that was,
we loved that.
Yeah, mate, it was amazing, and that's what that took my back. That in 2011, that was the Essential Mix was that powerful that it could take you from there to in like
a weekend.
Yeah, literally a weekend. I went from being and I remember that night you were really good to me because it was Calvin Harris, then you, then me.
Wow.
Okay, right, and you, and obviously
was Calvin performing live or
no, he's DJing, and it was like in the Rihanna all those mega hit kind of days, and you took it from that EDM and you brought it right down to that kind of over to you basically selflessly DJ'd. And you took it from one thing to me, and then I came on and played. I'm in my hometown, and I reckon only 20% of people knew who I was. Right, okay. But it was that music that we were doing at that time was different, wasn't it? Yeah, and it blew up. Yeah, it's amazing.
Entrance song.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. Yeah, I know it's still there. It's still there. And so like you obviously then sort of going back a bit. So would you say like Norm and Daft Punk, and they were when was the next transition? You know, you said you had 89, 91, then 93 Essential Mix, Radio and the Beat for 95. When would you say it went up another notch?
I think it was I think the other part of the 90s story is the rise of the bands.
Yeah.
So the real artists, because we'd had club culture, rave culture, really, like one-off culture. Then you had obviously the phenomenon of the proper club starting, like Ministry, like Cream, Lakota, Gatecrasher, God's Kitchen.
Yeah.
And then really I think the next thing is really the bands, so it's the Prodigy, it's the Chemical Brothers, it's Orbital,
Daft Punk, I guess.
Daft Punk, obviously, and then certainly with my record company hat on, like the focus became
Norman,
Fatboy Slim,
yeah,
and just acts selling albums, acts headlining festivals, I mean, you got to remember dance festivals as well. There wasn't really, dance music played at Glastonbury, but it was never really taken seriously.
No, there's one dance tent.
Yeah, I mean, Oki tells that story of playing Glastonbury twice actually as a DJ on the main stage, and he hated it. It was like because he felt he was there as tokenism, and it wasn't until years later of the Glastonbury we know now, and all the stuff you do, and all the stuff that happens up on the hill.
Yeah.
But like back in the early 90s,
it's just a dance tent. It was just called the dance tent.
And dance DJs used to appear at other festivals, but it wasn't really till Tribal Gathering, and then eventually, Homeland's Creamfield starting, that we had dedicated professional kind of dance festivals.
That was unbelievable.
I've got a great story. I was DJing at Phoenix Festival, before, like it must have been early 90s, and I come on stage after this act, where it was after Tin Machine, which was David Bowie's other band. And the DJ booth was set up to the side of the stage, and then I start playing when they finish, and you've almost got you've got like a curtain like at the side of the stage, and like the DJ booth's like half behind the curtain because no one had bothered to move it out, and it was like that's the way we were treated. And I remember being like 20 minutes into my set, I got a tap on the shoulder, and the guy was like behind me in a Cockney accent. It's like, mate, you want to have a word? I'm fucking disrespecting you. It's like, turn around, it's David Bowie.
Oh, really?
It's like you lot should be out there. And only conversation I ever had with him.
Well, that's fucking cool.
But so I think it was really and then the bands start coming through, like Underworld, obviously as well, Basement Jaxx, Groove Armada, and then that complete game changer in terms of the respect around the business and around our business, and the fact that those acts were not only headlining dance festivals but starting to headline main festivals. Then in America, because I'd got involved in launching London Records and FFR over there, you had that whole kind of they called it electronica, so they didn't totally get their heads around it, but they kind of understood, like they really got the Prodigy, and they really got the Chemical Brothers, and to a certain extent they got Orbital as well. So yeah, it was great times.
Yeah, amazing.
And Fatboy Slim was a kind of outlier in that because he was selling as many albums as them, but he was obviously doing it very much from a DJ.
Yeah, and
position.
He was a DJ
so
still.
He was super groundbreaking, really.
Did you go to the beach? The second
actually,
one?
No,
I went there. Couldn't get out of Brighton.
No,
just
of course,
stranded in Brighton. It was mental.
Yeah.
For one bloke.
I know, and he was, back in the beginning, he was kind of living it like he was like the Oasis. It was like watching Oasis, like one man band.
Some of the stories he's told me of the things he got up to.
Yeah, exactly. I'm surprised he can remember them.
It's funny. Yeah. And what do you reckon? Like now, how do you think technology, streaming, social media, AI, how do you think that's changed DJing? Do you think it's for the good, the bad, or indifferent?
I mean, for me, I find it fascinating. I never stopped learning. I mean, I come from an era where DJs didn't make music, and then obviously having all these other jobs, making music almost became to me like a hobby that I wanted to learn. So kind of self-taught, early days of Pro Tools originally, and then Logic, and then eventually Ableton. So I'm always fascinated by all this stuff, and I always think it's if you treat it like an enabler, you can use it in really, really creative ways. it's ups and downs. I mean, I guess the two things to contend with at the moment are it's so easy to make music now that you get a billion times more tracks.
Yeah,
and they all sound the same, and they're all. I always say it's very easy to get to the top of the B list.
Yeah,
if you know what I mean. It's like it's very easy to sound quite good.
Yeah,
it's really, really hard to sound amazing.
This is it. What you do is
you've got
guy.
So you've got that bit, but the other thing that is just, and then obviously we know the story. It's harder and harder to kind of get people's attention, to make money out of streaming for artists and all this stuff. But on the other hand, then the popularity and like feverishness around live events is alive and kicking.
Yeah,
I know, certain clubs have got their struggles, and there's that story of clubs closing and blah blah blah. But generally, people. I've got a slightly different take on the club story, which is like clubs. I think you would relate to this. A great club was never meant to last forever.
So true.
It's like, we talk about the legendary clubs like Studio 54 or even Zoom. I don't think it even lasted a year.
They're moments in time, right?
Yeah, they're moments in time. Social gangs of people together. So clubs have to evolve, and a lot of the ones that are closing down are the Ritzes in the high streets, or the ones that never change. I'm sure there's some exceptions, but so when a bunch of people come together with an idea, that club's usually fine.
Yeah.
And there's usually a queue outside. So I think this fascination with getting to live events, and when you see some of the fact that some of the biggest events in the world are really, it's underground DJs who aren't having hits per se. Credit to Calvin and David Guetta and all those people, they're still doing really well. But when you see what's happening around the Black Coffees or the kind of music,
Dom Dollar,
Dom's on the verge.
He is, but didn't he sell more tickets than AC/DC or anyone in Australia for a tour? Something crazy, like 450,000 tickets for a tour for a bloke DJing.
Yeah.
And he's a lovely guy.
So that's and he's signed to 360.
Yeah.
So he keeps the lights on.
Yeah.
So he but that fills me with hope. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I guess
making the connection between people loving the music or wanting to own the music and enjoy the music at the same time, that's probably the challenge.
Things change as well, I guess, right? It always changes, and as long as you adapt with it. And the thing is, I always say this about Ibiza. People say that Ibiza isn't as good as it used to be.
Well, it is to the first.
If you're going to Ushuaia when you're 18 years old and you're watching Chris Stussy, whoever, you're having just as good a time as I did in Bahrain watching you going in my tits off. There's no difference.
You're probably complaining a bit more about this price of the drinks.
yeah, that's true. That's true. No one can afford to buy any drinks. Whereas then you could get a bottle of water and a beer. Now you can't get anything.
Exactly.
Now I guess it segues nicely onto classics to Ibiza classics. Like obviously over the years you've done some pretty mental stuff. That's got to be one of your best ideas, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was an invitation at the start. It was certainly one of the most fortunate things that's ever happened to me. But I think we've made the best of the opportunity. But no, so it was. It's the 10-year anniversary this year. It started by an invitation to do a prom in the summer of 2015. And I was asked in January, and we had 6 months to plan it. And I was introduced to Jules Buckley, and we went from there. And then doing that show, we went into that show. That was an appointment. It was never a plan.
I like that. An appointment, not a plan.
And it was only really halfway through the first song, Right Here, Right Now, me and him looked at each other and thought something mad's going on here, because the whole Albert Hall stood up, started clapping, and never sat down again. And then when we got backstage after that, because it was a Radio 1 event, actually, and it was like Reese Hughes, and everyone was like Jason Carter back in the day. It was like, well, you got to do that again. You got to do that again. Let's take it to Glastonbury, blah, blah, blah. But we didn't know how, because it was quite a complicated thing to put together that show. So it took us almost 18 months before we got back out in the December of 2016, and we did the O2 and sold it out, and Manchester and Birmingham. And then it was really from 2016, it was like, there's something going on here. And as I say, it's 10 years this year, and we just announced we're going back to the Royal Albert Hall for the first time. So we've got 4 nights consecutive.
4 nights. Is it May the 29th,
30th, 31, and then 1st of June.
I'm going to come. The 29th is a Thursday, isn't it? Yeah. I'm coming the Thursday for sure.
And we got Jacob Lusk, who's from Gabriel's Rag and Bone Man, Barbara Tucker, who's never done a show with us before, and then Clem Douglas and Jazzy and all Vula and the whole gang. So it's going to be amazing. Yeah.
I always say this it must be a nightmare being Pete Tong. Because you're like the amount I've seen like on your WhatsApp, I've glimpsed it, 728 unread messages. Like, how do you like? You're still DJing, you're still doing the radio every week without fail.
Yeah.
I don't know how the fuck do you do it? Like, it must be an absolute pain in the ass. Obviously, you love it.
It's kind of habit. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'd probably be a bit lost if I wasn't doing it. It's funny how the show sits so central to everything I do in my life. I was up at like 7 this morning worrying about, which record goes in which order. That's how nerdy
on the radio.
I am. Yeah, I am.
Still, even to this day.
Yeah, it's weird. And I think if I didn't care about it, I've often thought, I could do this another way. I could get someone else to pick the music or do the mixes or something. And then I wouldn't like it. So I have to do it. And fortunately, technology and having friends like you and like I think the way we communicate now does make it a bit easier.
Yeah.
I hate to say this to all the people that send me music every week, but it's funny because you get hundreds of tracks,
fucking
like
thousands.
hundreds of tracks getting sent, but in some way you kind of surf above that, and I might get sent 200 promos, but a conversation with you, basically saying to me, "Oh,
have you heard this track?"
Heard this? Actually, probably means more to me. And by having that conversation 100 times a week with all our peers, you kind of get a different picture. Because it'd be very easy. Yeah, so it's I love it for that reason. So it's always it's like a puzzle.
You do it well, and like because whenever I sit in for you, whenever I take over, I always
thank you.
I love mate. I get to do this. No, it's not called the essential selection anymore, but in my eyes,
it's still to me.
It's the essential selection to me still. I always say it.
Do you know they told me to stop using that name at one point? It was literally stop using it.
Why?
I think because we had the record label called it for a minute, and then I think I might have tried to trademark Essential, and they got. Anyway, people still use it.
But it's a skill to build a radio show, I think, in the right way, to the peaks and troughs and stuff.
Yeah. It's also a showcase for other people. I mean, it was always about. I think my very first thing with DJing was sharing. It was always like if I discovered something I liked, I always wanted to play it to someone else.
Yeah, of course.
And that's kind of the very essence of DJing, I think.
Well, that's it, isn't it? You share and make people dance.
Yeah. And then I am proud of. I mean, when people come on and it means a lot to them to do a mix on the show for the first time. There's usually a kind of stepping stone. Come and do 30 minutes on my show, the weekly show, before you get the 2-hour essential mix after you've done a little bit more. So that journey, it's harder to get people's attention than it was in the 90s, but it still matters. So,
And yours, it's the most listened to. Listen again, isn't it? Of the whole of Radio
my
1.
show, and then apart from dance anthems, I think actually.
Oh, really?
Which are all the records I used to play.
Basically all the records that you made popular, they get regurgitated. Now I want to talk about, obviously you're here because of, well, not just because of, but because we lost ourselves and found a family, which we've been
we're very proud of.
We're very proud of. It's been a 4-year story.
I know, it took a bit longer than we
it
thought.
Took fucking hell, it took way longer, and it's because of you that I joined 360 and joined the label, and it was a wicked.
And people stopped making albums during the last 4 years somehow.
I know. I don't know. I'm one of the only dance albums this year. I might even get a nomination of Best of British.
You should do,
purely on the fact that I'm one of the only cunts who's done it. I just want. It's just amazing to have worked with you in that capacity. Do you know what I mean? And it was obviously Sam came along and things. You didn't take a backseat, but you're a busy guy. You don't be talking to this idiot 5 times a day.
No.
But it was fun, right?
It was an immense amount of fun. And creative, and I think I always wanted to work with you from entrance song onwards. Yeah, people don't always get to make albums these days. But also people don't get to make albums like you've made this album, with the interludes and bits like that.
That was.
I always remember one of my favourite records, like growing up, was the world famous Supreme Team, the Buffalo. The Malcolm McLaren album. And when I was first on the radio, I used to chop out all those little bits, the world famous Supreme Team,
the little interludes,
for my jingles, So I think you're the first, like the first album to come along that you could do that with.
Well, the thing is, it's like because Daft Punk did it,
Yeah.
and before that, obviously Snoop Dogg, the first Doggy
I
Style.
think Daft Punk did it. I think you've done it in a more. Yeah, I mean Daft Punk did do it.
Yeah, with a couple of, but they were the
Giorgio
interludes.
Moroder. Yeah. But,
And then there's a band called the Goats, who I don't remember them, a hip hop band back in the day, and their interludes were, and I was 92, I think, and it always stuck with me that an album should have interludes, basically. I don't know why, and so I wanted to do it, and it's worked out great.
It's amazing, yeah.
Well, thanks.
And the fact you've done an intro, and it's like a mixtape, but people just don't. Yeah, I think people don't make them like that anymore.
No.
So it's good.
Or maybe they don't for a reason. Who knows? But I'm actually proud.
No, I actually think your album also will get this. You know, as hard as it is to get people to bloody stop what they're doing and listen. I feel very happy. The fact I can imagine someone in 5 years' time like coming across the album for the first time, even if they know who you are.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It'll be that kind of thing. I think people will stand the test of time.
I've had a few people say that, like industry people message me saying, "Mate, be proud because it will stand the test of time."
Definitely.
It's not, you've not gone for what's hot now. You've just done you and made it.
I mean, you're not meant to. Yeah, you're not meant to. It's the hardest thing is to be stubborn and ignore the noise around you and like stay on track of what you want to do.
It's so difficult.
Yeah.
So difficult because you see
and
people,
the fact that this album represents all your different kind of shades and colours of your taste, I think that was so important.
Yeah, that was
you've got the record company pressure probably all the time, like have hits.
Yeah, totally.
But I think tracks on it, like the MJ Cole track, will, I can easily see people thinking that's new in 10 years' time.
Yeah, man, definitely. Yeah, it's a beautiful one, that one. What are you most proud of looking back on your career? If you had to pick one thing, no, it's definitely not We Lost Ourselves and Found a Family. You can say that if you want, but no.
Apart from that, probably still being here. Actually, I mean, I think
it's no mean feat, mate.
Super lucky to have a career. In music, kind of doing what I loved, being able to stay curious and have all these different outlets to kind of, from a record label to a radio show to DJing. I still pinch myself sometimes, like what the, I played in Rio a week or two ago,
fucking mint.
And I'm not as young as I used to be, and I'm there at 6:30 in the morning.
You sent me a picture
with vintage and blondish, and and it's like I absolutely love it. The bit in between waiting for that moment was like it's killer. Like I don't want to be up all night, but I still love it. Well, I think if I can get dropped into those environments, that still feels it's exciting. So yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, to finish on, I guess, because we've touched on it, it's been brilliant. What are you most excited with, Flo? Is it a sound, club? What for the future of dance music? Obviously, you basically set it up, kicked it on its way. Yeah. What excites you now?
I mean, it's a really interesting time this year because I feel, it's always the kind of, it's what the kind of youth is forcing out there.
Yeah.
Like the real younger element of it and what they're into. I find it really fascinating at the moment that, obviously my probably personal sound of my DJing in the last few years has kind of gone around that kind of, I'd say kind of music, but not the Afro house thing, but more what they used to do.
Yeah, definitely, I'd agree.
And obviously Solomon's a dynamic innovation, so I love all that. And maybe a few years ago you would have said, but that's kind of like that's dance music for grown-ups.
Yeah.
And what the kids are really doing. But I go to these places now, like I played at Coco last month. And the audience is like 17, 18.
It's mad,
and they're absolutely loving that. And yet at the same time, you've got the faster stuff.
Sammy Vergy, people like
the
that.
Sammy Vergy thing going on. You've got the heartstring and all of that sound.
Chris Stussy,
so it's really,
kind of thing.
Stussy's thing. It's a really interesting time. It's all kind of mishmashed together as well.
Yeah.
So I think just watching the change and then trying to find the unicorn amongst all that, to watch what's happened with Dom Dollar, what we've been involved in on the label. I mean, we signed him at the beginning because we loved him with Take It, and he was starting to kind of move the needle in Australia.
Yeah.
And to think that was 2018, 2019. In fact, I came to 360 because I was actually still working with FFR at the time.
You were, yeah.
And then I'd moved to LA, and I was struggling to get FFR really going on the LA side of Warner's, and then I tried to sign Dom Dollar, and it was actually me and Elias went went mad to sign Dom Dollar, and then I kind of ended up like joining Mark, and then just as he signed Dom Dollar, so with me kind of like telling, you know, I kind of switched labels. No, to think then and then look now, like 2025, amazing. And then see what he just did at Madison Square Gardens, and see the opening of that show and the creativity. And he still hasn't really had a hit.
No, he hasn't. Not
I mean, he has had big records, but to his audience, but not like something everyone can sing, like a Calvin Harris record.
No.
Yet. So to think that could all still go on top of where he's got to. So very proud to be, and that's finding the next one of those, or watching the next one of those. So
amazing. Well,
I think
thank you, Pete Tong, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, mate. Nice one.
That's good, mate.